Welcome to the Anywhere office.
Hey, Phil Montero from the TheAnywhereOffice.com here, and it is truly a pleasure and an honor to have my virtual doppelganger here, Phil Simon. Phil, you are an author, a consultant, a speaker, a small business expert, and Phil is the author of an awesome book that I just finished reading on my recent plane trip called The New Small, and that's a subtitle, How a New Breed of Small Businesses is Harnessing the Power of Emerging Technologies. Thanks for joining me today, Phil.
Hey, Phil, thanks for having me. Good thing I didn't wear my similar shirt. That would really confuse me.
No doubt, no doubt. Phil and I, we've talked a bunch of times, recently met, and we just realized we had way too much in common from our perspective on small business and technology and workplace flexibility to where we grew up. You're in New Jersey now, right?
I am.
Yep, and I was Jersey's in the house because I was born in Brooklyn, lived in Jersey for a while myself. And although I have to tell you, I saw you being interviewed by Carol Roth the other day, and she asked you a sports question, and you answered something about liking the Redskins. And I got to tell you, as a Jersey boy and a Giant fan, that was a little disheartening there.
I was beat up quite a bit for answering that question as an adult, but it's funny. Carol asked me that question, and I responded with the 1982-83 Washington Redskins.
Yeah, you had a specific year and team on what was your favorite sports team. So
yeah, they're kind of hard to like these days. The owner's a bit of a putz, but back in the day, they were the Diesel and the Hogs and the Fun Bunch. They had personality.
Sure. Can't deny it. Yeah, the NFL was a lot more fun in those days. So, but yeah, I'm very excited because not only did you send me a copy of this book, which and I just want to point out to people, I don't know if you can see it in the camera, how dog-eared this is. Some authors take offense to that, think it's abusing the book, but there are so many nuggets of wisdom in here for small businesses on how to use technology and how you can best grow your business and compete with larger organizations despite your size by using these emerging technologies that I couldn't help but fold over like every other page of this. So and the other thing I like is that I have a second book signed by Phil Simon himself. There's the signature. And we'll be giving this away at the end of this video and on this blog post, and I'll tell you what you need to do to try and win your copy of The New Small. But let's talk about the book in general, from a broader perspective at first, Phil. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what you define as the new small, this new breed of small business, and what is it that made you decide? I know you've written a couple of books. This is your third book now. What made you write this book at this time?
Well, long story short, Phil, it was obvious to me that many small businesses were struggling with these emerging technologies, and certainly I, as a technology expert, sometimes have a great deal of difficulty keeping up. Things move, as you know, so fast. So that sort of inspired me to write the book. As it pertains to defining the new small, for me, it isn't so much about number of employees or amount of money in revenue, because what is that really? It was more about a mentality, how you embrace technology and how you saw technology as a means to an end. I'm a big believer that work doesn't have to suck. Everyone has their bad days, and sometimes you want to kill your boss or your direct reports, but in an ideal world, you should enjoy how you earn a living. And the way that technology can make that easier, I thought, warranted a book. Using something like this, video Skype, so we can do a high-quality video without having to get on a plane, or using a Google Doc so we can collaborate on something in real time and not send something back and forth. I mean, those are small examples, but I thought that there are too many companies out there that just don't know about some of these basic things. So why not write, hopefully, a jargon-free book with a lot of case studies showing that there are dentists and restaurants and law firms and all sorts of different companies that basically have religion.
Yeah, and that's what I really liked about the book. It's certainly not, for anyone that looks at this book, and we'll be talking a lot about technology today, it's not a technology book. I view of it more as almost like a business strategy book on how you can take advantage of the technology. And you certainly talk about those enablers and what those primary 5 enablers, the 5 pieces of technology that you feel make the new small what they are and how they embrace those and compete with larger companies. And it's constantly amazing to me, as you said, how a small company today can do some amazing things. And a lot of them don't know about this technology, like you said. So I think your book is excellent in that facet, because if you are a small business owner, an entrepreneur, or you're thinking about starting a small business or going out on your own, this should be required reading, because it really gives you kind of a grounding on what are these technologies and what do I need to be exploring and where do I need help and where can I probably do some of the stuff, on my own, I think.
Yeah, I would see you and raise you, Phil. I think that there are a lot of big companies out there that could, quite frankly, learn a great deal from their smaller brethren. So, I think that the book has a wide commercial appeal. It's one of the reasons that I took sort of a non-traditional approach to getting this one out. I kind of put my money where my mouth is and took some steps to expedite the publishing process and to get the book out there at a price that falls into what I consider to be an impulse buy.
Yeah.
My other publisher wanted to do the book, but they wanted to price it about 3 times higher.
Wow.
And the economy's not that great right now. Fewer people are reading books. There's so much free content on the web, my site, your site, a million others. Why give people a reason not to buy it? So I'm a big believer that price still matters. And if you put out a good book at a reasonable price, hopefully good things will happen.
That's right. And you've also made it available in digital format as well, correct? It's on the I think the Kindle and the Nook, you said, at this point? So
iPad and Nook.
iPad, okay.
A Kindle should happen any day now, but It's funny, I've blogged before about how I can be absolutely thrilled with Amazon as a customer and absolutely irate as a vendor at the same time. It's incredible to me.
Yes,
it's like golf. 1 minute you love it, the next minute, damn it!
Why did I take up this sport? One of the things you talk about in here, and as a tech guy, and I know we're both kind of tech guys, and again, the thing I want to stress here is that you don't need to be a technology maven to be part of the new small. One of the things you talk about is that the new small knows when they need help and when they need to bring in a consultant or an outside person to kind of help them implement something, and when they don't. But you talk about, and I thought this was great the way you kind of codified it, because on the Anywhere office, we always talk about these same technologies, but I never thought about kind of narrowing it down to this 5. And you talk about the 5 enablers, these 5 essential technology shifts or changes that have allowed the new small and small businesses to really thrive and grow today. Can you just summarize briefly? I know that's a big part of section 1 of the book, is talking about the trends and the shift and what those are, but can you just kind of briefly summarize what those 5 enablers are?
Yeah, sure thing, Phil. In speaking with these 11 small business owners, it became obvious to me that there were these 5 technologies that were having a major impact on each one. And they are, and I'll give a brief description later, cloud computing, software as a service, free and open source software, mobility, and social technologies. And I'll just go through them very quickly.
Great.
With cloud computing, we're really talking about the ability to get to your data in your apps anywhere at any time, not to be chained to your desktop. Software as a service is kind of a cousin. You basically rent the software. You don't have to buy it. You turn it into a much more variable expense as opposed to a massive $50,000 or $100,000 capital expense at the beginning of the year. Free and open source software, again, you'd have to be living in a vacuum, whether it's WordPress, whether it's something like OpenOffice. There are very high quality alternatives to traditional proprietary applications, and it's free. Next up, you have mobility. Again, you'd have to be living in a vacuum. There's so much going on right now with apps. I heard the other day that 11 billion apps have been sold in the App Store for Apple, which is an astonishing number. It'd be about 1.5 for every person on the planet. And then finally, social technology, social media, and social networks. It's just really changed the way that people connect, present company included.
Yeah. That's right. I mean, if it wasn't for Twitter and things like that, you and I probably wouldn't even know each other. And it's remarkable to me. Every one of those enablers that you talk about is so powerful, and we could probably sit here and talk for 30 minutes to an hour about every one of those.
It's interesting. At one point, I was going to call the book "The 5 Enablers," but then I thought that it was a little bit not clunky, but what is that really?
Mm-hmm.
So I decided on the new small, and I couldn't believe the URL was free. But then I wanted to make the 5 enablers really part of the book, but as you know, it isn't just about using clouds or using social media for the sake of doing so. I really wanted to tie each technology back into a real-life business outcome because there are two things that I think people who don't understand technology have a hard time getting their arms around. They think, well, if we use cloud computing, that will solve all of our problems. Well, if you have bad data, right, and it's in the cloud, well, congratulations, you just have better access to bad data. So I would rather have a local spreadsheet on my desktop that is actually accurate rather than horrible data up in the cloud. So that's something that I think a lot of people don't understand.
Very true.
It's really important to tie these into a business context. And I'm not big on books that are really preachy. I wanted to show how Chef Tony in Maryland uses social media to grow his customer base, and he saves money on marketing, or how a law firm in Minneapolis reduces its IT budget by 75% by putting its data and apps in the cloud, and, oh, by the way, increasing its uptime to 99.99%.
Yeah.
I'm a big believer in showing, not telling.
Yeah, well, and that's what I loved about the second section of the book. Again, for those that haven't looked at it yet, the first part you talk about the trends and the enablers, and then the second part is essentially like 11 companies that you, and I'm wary to call them case studies because that sounds dry. They're more like stories where you're profiling 11 different companies, including a dentist's office, like you said, a law firm, a chef, people that you wouldn't think of as using cloud computing or social networking or maybe software as a service, but you show how this can actually be applied to any business. And I think it's something we've talked about before, and I think it touches on what you're saying, is it's not really just about the technology. It's the right technology thoughtfully applied. And you said that just then. If you've got bad data and it's on the cloud, well, now it's just bad data everywhere. I mean, it really comes with the right philosophy toward using this technology.
Yeah, and I specifically chose those kinds of sort of non-technical companies, thinking that there may be people, Phil, who go, why do I want to read about a dental office? Mm-hmm. Well, if a dental office can save $20,000 by finding an open source application to manage the practice, Open Dental, which of course a year ago I had never heard of. Well, if you're in the construction business, if you're an accountant, if you run a sporting goods store, before you make that major purchase, do a Google search. Maybe there's something out there that actually can save you a great deal of money. That's not to say, Phil, as you know, that any one of these technologies, to your point before, is this silver bullet. For example, there are, in the book, plenty of companies, for example, Chaotic Moon, a mobile development company, mm-hmm. They're in web design and mobile app design. So for them, paying, I think it's $1,300 for licenses for Adobe Creative Suites, like Dreamweaver and the Photoshop.
Photoshop, yeah.
That makes all the sense in the world because they need a best-of-breed app. The point is, as you said before, you have this choice. What are you going to do about it? Simply ticking off your boxes of buying a Microsoft Exchange server, buying Microsoft Office and Windows license for everyone in the company, you certainly can do that, and I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong, but you have options. And I wanted to write a book that went through some of these options in a way, as you said before, that does tell a story, because one of my favorite authors, Malcolm Gladwell, and I hesitate to compare myself to him because I think he's an amazing writer, but he makes you feel like there's this common theme, and regardless of his book, even though he's talking about totally different things, at the end you kind of see how these things...
It all ties together. The rug really keeps the room together, as the dude would say in a...
You do not get me started on that, man. I will go with Big Lebowski quotes all day long. The challenge will be not to drop the F-bomb.
There you go. But no, and I think your book definitely accomplishes that. I mean, the theme that you set out in the beginning and kind of where you set it up really carries through, and that's why, I really think this book is what I enjoyed so much about it was that what you're talking about in here is the same thing I try to explain to so many clients that I have, and that they do have options. Everyone assumes, or I don't want to say everyone assumes, as you said, the new small doesn't assume that, but a lot of companies assume that there's a traditional route they need to take to this technology, and this is the way business has always been run. We always have to have a server. We have to have our email in-house. We have to do all this. And I've been working with a lot of companies that have made this transition from kind of the old school way of doing things, and as they're looking to work smarter and work leaner, or maybe they're dispersing their workforce for different reasons, they're finding that the software as a service and the cloud computing and, again, the free and open source software, it is amazing how affordable you can run a business today. And when I talk to people, and I'm not saying you shouldn't invest in software. I think, like as you said, there are times where that makes a lot of sense. And maybe you start with that. What you mentioned freemium before, and you start with maybe the free version. And then as you start to grow and you prove to yourself, oh yeah, this technology is the right fit for our business. Well, then you upgrade, and maybe you need more users or more disk space, and you expand to their
right,
paid models,
or more features, more functionality.
Right.
Exactly. You can date before you get married. You don't have to buy these expensive licenses. You can use a tool like Yammer for free, and if it catches on, people like it, to your point, then you can upgrade. And there are many different examples of premium-based products. It's an extremely popular business model, as you know, and because of the decrease in the cost of storage and the increase in broadband, again, that wasn't really a viable option 10 or 15 years ago. No software vendor was going to let you try something for free. Now there are even major enterprise players who think, okay, we can give somebody a trial for 30 days in the cloud without doing an installation. That's probably going to be more effective than coming in and having our sales team do a
demo or something like that. Exactly.
Right. So it's really a different world right now. And I think that because there's so much change, people in the face of this uncertainty and lack of knowledge might just go with what they already know, when in reality they could have saved a lot of money or they could have done things in a more efficient way. Some bells are really difficult to unring. $15,000 or $20,000 in the whole scheme of things may not be a fortune, but to a 5 or 10 person company,
it's all the difference.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't an IBM or an Accenture or a company that can just write that off very quickly. So I do think the book would be beneficial for people who are just unaware of what other companies are doing. Again, it's not an encyclopedia, it's not a reference guide per se, but again, I just want people to start asking the question, what else is out there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's, like you said, I mean, you can start with just something as simple as a Google search for what it is that you're trying to achieve and find out what else is out there. Now, you also talk about, and this is something, I often mention when I'm discussing things with people, that because of these enablers and these shifts in technology, there are playing fields and things that small businesses can do today that 10 years, even 5 years ago, were unheard of. I mean, to have a rich customer relationship management system that did everything that you can do, again, many times for free or for a low per user cost without spending $10,000, $15,000 in hardware and software right out the gate, that would have precluded small businesses from doing that before, is now available. What would you say? I mean, I guess what I'd like to see is, like, what would be 2 examples from you of areas you think that small businesses, things they can do today that they couldn't do even 5 years ago, thanks to these 5 enablers?
Well, first up, reaching their customers, I would argue, has never been easier, and that could be as simple as setting up a Facebook page or using Aweber or Constant Contact. Go back 10 or 15 years, and you'd really have to hire a professional marketing firm, right? Or if not everyone had an email address, right, you would have to spend tens of thousands of dollars on printing costs and shipping. I was just reading Permission Marketing by Seth Godin, which was written in 1999, and that's just when the internet was starting to really get going, and he talks about how these changes are making it much more cost-effective for people to get in touch with people. So something as simple as Facebook makes a lot of sense. Next up, in no particular order, you have just the ability to outsource parts of the business. And in the book, I write about this company, Dodo Case, which makes iPad cases. And they realized that 85% of their queries could be handled typically with a support form. But then they also contracted a company, because some people still like to talk to human beings, called 5 an Hour, which provides customer service for $5 an hour. So again, were companies out there 10 or 15 years ago that could do that? Maybe, maybe not. But again, the world is much flatter now. It's much easier to find those companies. I'll give you one more, just from a development perspective, and offshoring has been taking place for a long time. But we've really gotten a lot better now, and there's a great example in the book of a company called Peerport. They make collaboration software based here in New Jersey. And they realized that if they were just talking over the phone with their developers, and the developers happen to be in India, the way that a lot of Indians speak English, they'll say okay. And in the United States, when someone says okay, we tend to think, okay, you understand. But actually, culturally over there, it's very different. It just means that I heard you. So by being able to use something like video, Skype, or GoToMeeting, or whatever, you're able to read, much like I can see you now, the nonverbal cues. And sociologists have said that something like 90% of all communication is nonverbal. So you and I have both been here before. Someone misunderstood an email or got the wrong tone. So it's just three examples of technologies that, again, 10 or 15 years ago weren't as easy. And now you launch Skype, you hit the video button, here you go.
Yeah, and as you said, it's amazing, though, even with as prevalent as something like Skype and video chat. I mean, certainly Skype's not the only solution to that, although I think it's one of the best. But you can do that through Yahoo Messenger and AOL. It's amazing to me how many companies still don't even think about implementing video. I mean, there are people like you. I don't think we've never spoken on the phone. I don't think we've just Skyped. There are other clients that I've worked with or consultants that I've collaborated with on projects where every time we talk, we don't even think about picking up a cell phone or a phone. We just Skype each other. We either do a voice chat or most times it's a video chat, and the relationship grows much quicker because of the nonverbal cues and seeing each other's workspace.
Right, I would recognize you at a conference, whereas if we just talked on the phone, right? But no, or you have the other problem, I think, which is that maybe if you work at a small company and you keep up with technology, you're aware that Cisco has this virtual telepresence, which is something like $250,000. And truth be told, it's probably a lot better than video Skype, but who has $250,000? So again, with the whole freemium package, if you can get by with a limited version of something for free, it's the whole 80-20 rule, right? If you can get 80% of the functionality for 20% of the cost, if it's worth the other 20%, if it's worth the extra money, then spend it. But the point is, you don't have to do that. There are so many free alternatives out there, and I certainly have my favorites the way that you do, and I'm constantly learning from people like you. It's the reason that I think I enjoy it so much. I feel like I'm never finished learning. But there are plenty of small business owners out there that are just very busy, and they're very accustomed to doing what they do best. And there's nothing wrong with that, as you said before. Hiring a consultant or a vendor or reaching out for help is definitely not a bad thing. I do it myself. I didn't build my Facebook fan page for the New Small from scratch. I work with a company called HyperArts that sells a template that I eventually customized. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel, but you see some of these companies' homegrown websites, and quite frankly, they're a joke. Yeah. They look like they were built in 1996. They're not interactive. There's no content. You say, that is your window to the world. That is your virtual storefront. Why wouldn't you want to have a robust website that actually encourages people to come back?
Come back and interact and provides value. And that's if they even have a website, the scary few that I come across that still don't have one. And like you said, you can get WordPress, which is free open source software, run it on an inexpensive hosting platform. I think I pay $10 a month for my hosting platform, and has like unlimited bandwidth, unlimited storage. I can put all the videos and everything I want on there. And you can buy a professional theme for anywhere from $30 to $100. If you can customize it yourself, great. If not, you hire somebody else to customize it for you. But like you said, you're not starting from scratch and reinventing the wheel, but it gives you something of professional, high value for not a lot of money, and a lot of it winds up being free or open source, as you had mentioned.
Oh, it's amazing. I was looking into a proper website for thenewsmall.com. I wanted one separate from my main website. And I work with my developer, and she's a rock star, and I knew what I wanted, and we bought this theme. The whole site cost maybe $1,200 to develop. Again, she's a professional. I wanted it done quickly. Similar sites I've seen, people have told me, yeah, we spent 15 grand for this. And then I tell them, do you think I'm the kind of person who can just write a check for 15 grand? Not yet, right? Maybe one day. But even if I did
after this video with all the books we're going to sell, then you'll be writing that check.
Oh, you're going to
send part of it to me.
But it's my Chamber of Commerce here in New Jersey. Their websites, again, it's laughable. And I've talked to them about this a number of times. They go, we just don't have the money. You don't have 50. I mean, you're hurting. If you sign up 5 people for annual memberships, this will pay for itself. Completely. And what if you sign up 50? What if you sign up 100? But again, there are many old school small businesses that lamentably just don't get it. And, I've decided this year that there are 3 groups of people in the world, and I only want to spend time with 2 of them. People who get it, like you, people who don't get it but want to get it, and then people who don't get it and never want to get it. So I'm not going to bother with those people. And if people have questions, they can read the book. If people like my philosophy and they like the book like you do, that's wonderful. But, my first book, as we talked about before, was really about being dropped into these big IT projects for 20 or 30,000 person organizations, and it was only a matter of time before things broke bad. Well, this is a much more positive book, if you like, and I think that the story, I got to tell you, man, I had a blast talking, like I'm talking to you, to these small business owners, because they were so passionate So we had so much in common about what technologies could do. And even though I wasn't about to go buy law practice management software or dental practice management software, it was still interesting to me because this was part of their business. They saved the money, and it made a lot of sense. And it was very much sort of in keeping with my own philosophy on really, again, technology being a means to an end. You don't use WordPress to tell people you use WordPress. You use it because it's a good content management system.
That's right.
Right? And you don't have to use Word, right? You can use Google Docs. You can use OpenOffice. So there were so many choices. I just wanted to tell the world and share some of my knowledge and also share their stories.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, when I made that shift, I used to, being involved with this since, God knows how long, 13, 15 years, and talking about telecommuting and telework and flex work and why it's so important, and felt like you were preaching to people half the time, trying to get them to make this adjustment and make this switch. And like you, I finally decided, you know what, I'm just going to work with people that get it and want to just do it better and that are excited by what this flexible work and this new technology allows. And that was all the difference in the world in my business, because like you said, then I suddenly enjoyed the conversations and the consulting that I was doing, rather than feeling like I was always trying to sell somebody on something or why they should do it. Instead, they're coming to me and saying, hey, look, we're already working from multiple locations, or I have people I want to hire from 3 different states. How do I do that better? Not like, well, we really all want to be in the same office and, we're kind of being forced to do this. It's a very, very different approach that way.
Well, I know you live in Florida, so you've been hammered with 87 inches of snow, whatever we got here in New Jersey. But to me, it's just plain stupid. Right? I mean, yes, if it's an important meeting and you have to be there, no one's saying you should never be in an office and you should always have to work from home. I just don't think that's really feasible. But if it's snowing out and you could dial in and you can have the conversation and there can be video and you can share with Dropbox and not have to worry about, well, it's too big of an email attachment. There are sites like Dropbox. There are sites like yousendit.com. I mean, I never want to hear that I physically someone wanted to see a copy of, I was on television for a segment. I said, well, can you mail a DVD? I said, I can. Here's the URL. You can have this in 3 or 4 days if the post office doesn't lose it, or you can click this link right now and see it by the time I'm finished with this sentence.
Yeah.
Again, I can send you the copy, but I just think that the way that I and new small companies and yourself, I put you in that category, use technology is just so pragmatic and intelligent. It's not about, well, we have to use corporate Lotus Notes.
Yeah.
Right? We have to use Outlook. I mean, if that works for your business, then go ahead, use it. I'm not anti-Lotus Notes or anti-Microsoft, but if you're looking for a way to always get at your email, to me, what's better than Zoho? What's better than Google Mail?
Sure.
I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I completely agree. And that, like you said, it is a shift. It's a shift in thinking, and it's a shift in your philosophy toward what business is. But to me, the bottom line is it's getting the work done. And as long as the work gets done, then time, location, all of these things don't matter. So it doesn't matter whether you're working with someone across distance, whether I'm at the beach and you're at the ski slopes, whether we're physically in the same place or we're having a Skype chat like this. If the client's happy, we can get the business done, we can get the deliverables back and forth, using Dropbox and you send it and these things, or have virtual meetings, then the rest of that stuff really ultimately shouldn't matter. And I think you're right. There's some companies that are dinosaurs that are just we'll be stepping over their bones in the La Brea tar pit when they, because they refuse to change and because this is the way we've always done things. And there's the smart companies like the New Small, which we're both card-carrying members of, that get it and keep learning. And I think that's part of it. Is, I've always had a kind of a lifetime learner philosophy. I play in the sandbox, I grab some new technology, and I try to use it on a non-mission critical thing, like you and I doing a quick chat about something to test recording Skype interviews. And you find some kind of fun, less pressured stuff to help you wrap your mind and your arms around how the technology works. And I think for a lot of companies, it's the ones that can embrace that and like that are the ones that you're kind of defining as the new small here with that.
Right. In his book, Drive, Dan Pink, I think, refers to them as results-oriented work environments, or ROEs.
Yeah.
And I'm a big believer that, look, if there's a client meeting at 3 o'clock, you need to be there. But I'm up every day before 5 a.m. I get so much productive work done before people in Europe sometimes have even got to work. Yeah. It's easy for me working for myself. Clearly, if I'm at a client site, that makes sense. But, my next gig may be in Pittsburgh, and with gas being what it is, with travel being what it is, if I could save the client money from traveling and save myself some time, and work from home and be as productive, share my screen, use another tip you gave me, use ScreenFlow. So instead of saying, well, you're not going to do an entire 8-hour training course with ScreenFlow, but if someone says, I just don't understand, and oh, by the way, I can't get at this because it's firewalled, right? Well, you could record a video of something, put it up there, as opposed to saying, "Oh, I got to fly out to Pittsburgh for
show you how to do this."
to show you how to do. I mean, 15, 20 years ago, you didn't have a choice. But my point is now that you have these sort of tools in the toolbox, don't be afraid to use them. And it's great to meet a kindred spirit. And there are other people out there, but I agree with you. And one of my favorite quotes in the book from Darwin is something like, it's not the most intelligent of the species who will survive, nor the strongest, but the one most adapted to change. Yeah. And I'm a big believer, if you hang on to these old things, well, there are companies that are doing it better, faster, smarter, cheaper, so you can either fight change or you can embrace it. And I know you and I feel the same way about it.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Well, Phil, let me just there's two things. I do want to give the book away, so I want to talk about that in a second. But why don't you just tell me, if people are interested in your book or talking to you, getting in touch with you, what are the best ways for them to get a hold of your book and get in touch with you?
Sure. Well, the book itself, Phil, is on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Borders, a bunch of other book sites. You can download a chapter for free at thenewsmall.com. My main site is philsimonsystems.com. So I'm pretty, obviously on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, most of the major social media sites.
You have to try not to find you, is what you're basically saying.
I'm like a fungus. I actually boot up at your computer.
Nice. And yeah, and you should definitely go to philsimonsystems.com. You've got a great blog there. I really enjoy the posts. You get a lot of interviews and more tips and strategies and kind of your philosophy about new business that you share both there and on the New Small. So I strongly urge you.
Got Seth Godin to talk to me.
That's it right there.
I tell you, I never prepared so hard in an interview, trying not to look like a complete idiot.
It went well, though. I watched it. It was great. Okay, now what I want to do is give away, you too, if you don't win the book, definitely go out and buy it, because again, I can't recommend this book highly enough. It's the kind of book I would have written if I had written a book. It talks about a lot of the stuff we talk about here on the Anywhere Office, and how as a small business, solo professional, solopreneur, entrepreneur, how you can use these emerging technologies. But what I'd like to do here, Phil, is...
Well, should we let them in on the little secret that you actually use technology to slightly alter your image? And my pseudonym is Phil Montero.
Yes, yeah. We should probably talk about that. I'm really interviewing myself right now. This is really just a camera trick. In fact, I was with this book, I think we talked about this, in a Chinese restaurant recently, and I was reading the back of it when I first picked it up from my mailbox, and the woman saw this picture and thought it was me. If I would have said it was me, I probably would have gotten some free pork fried rice, but I didn't.
Oh, you've seen Total Recall, right?
Yes.
So maybe we got that going on.
That's right. Maybe we do. But I want to give this away, and what I'd like to do is, one of the topics you talked about, and of the 5 enablers, I think probably one of the most powerful ones, in my opinion, is the free and open source software, because it allows you to try before you buy, as you said, or date before you marry. And you also mentioned that in smaller companies, it's often a ground up or an organic approach where one person comes in and says, hey, I have this calendaring app I use, or this is the way I share large files, and then the company might adopt it. Whereas in larger organizations, I mean, the amount of red tape and the signing off and the IT experiments that have to go on before anything gets implemented is unbelievable. So I know you and I both have our favorites. We've talked about some here. You talked about GoToMeeting, and we've talked about Skype. But what I'd like to do is, anyone that wants to be in the running to win your free copy of The New Small, I have one signed copy to give away. Simply post a comment in the blog here. If you're watching this on YouTube, then go over to the blog. There'll be a link there. And go over and post a comment of your favorite or must-have, can't live without piece of free or open source software, and why that's instrumental for you to be able to run your business. And I think it'll be great, because we'll be able to share tips. As you said, we'll all learn from everybody else in the tribe of New Small, and what maybe some new software and services we don't already know about. And it'll be a kind of a great brain dump and sharing opportunity. And then we'll pick at random one of those comments on the blog at the end of the week. We'll run it for the week, and at the end of the week, we'll pick that, and that person will win this copy signed by Phil Simon.
Can I vote?
Yeah, you can vote. It's random, but you can vote. How's that?
No, I'm very curious to see what your readers come up with. Like you, I'm a human sponge.
Yep. Oh, I'm really just doing this as an excuse to find new software for myself. It's just a ploy. You gave me the book, so I figured why not leverage it some way.
You're just a leech, aren't you?
That's me, baby. Well, thanks again, Phil. I appreciate and Phil, you're gonna have to come back more often because we have way too much to talk about to fit into this one video. So we'll have to do some kind of ongoing video chats like this where we can talk all about running small businesses and growing successful businesses with this technology. So
I'd like that. Thanks for having me, bud.
great pleasure. Thanks a lot.